Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Okay, happy Wednesday everybody. As I said yesterday, this week China is on holiday, so there is a possibility that we will not have episodes every day if it does not look like there is enough information to cover. But for today, there is plenty to go through, so let's jump in. But before we move into the main developments, over the weekend, China saw record-breaking cold weather, including the coldest day ever recorded. The temperature in the city of Mohe in northeastern China's Heilongjiang province dipped past minus 53 degrees Celsius, that is minus 63.4 degrees Fahrenheit, on the 22nd of January, beating China's previous record low from back in 1969. The cold snap is expected to continue this week. Even the subtropical southeastern province of Yunnan is expected to see temperatures fall below 0 degrees Celsius today. We remember that just last year, southern China went through an intense summer heat wave, seeing record droughts, and with August's average temperature hitting its highest levels on record. Okay, now let's move into the major developments, and first up, several US-based media outlets citing unnamed officials are reporting that the White House has confronted Beijing regarding potential evidence that PRC state-owned companies are providing assistance for Russia's war in Ukraine. Quote, as it tries to ascertain if Beijing is aware of these activities, end quote, in the words of one outlet. The assistance, again according to unnamed sources, consists of non-lethal military and economic assistance, quote, that stops short of wholesale evasion of the sanctions regime the US has implemented, end quote. On Tuesday, the US State Department, through a spokesperson, expressed, quote, this is something that we have been closely monitoring since, even before, the start of Russia's war against Ukraine in February of last year, end quote. Adding that US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is likely to ask his counterparts in Beijing next month whether Chinese companies are indeed supporting Russia's war. In a briefing the same day, the White House press secretary said that the US is, quote, closely monitoring the situation, end quote, adding, quote, we have talked about this many times, that we will be very clear what it means to support Russia's aggression against Ukraine, end quote. It is not clear how the US would respond if the accusations turn out to be accurate. It certainly would not help an already deeply damaged bilateral relationship. More than one analyst has pointed out that this risks a whole new area of dispute, just at a time when the technology war is already heating up. Russia and China declared a no-limits relationship before the war, but to date China has not provided lethal weapons, being both concerned about the risk of sanctions from the US as well as more damage to its reputation with the EU. However, economic support has been significant. We remember back in December, in a phone call between Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, the two heads of state, according to Chinese state media, agreed to cooperate on trade, energy, finance and agriculture. In 2022, China's imports from Russia grew by nearly 50% year-on-year. Now, before we move on, and while we're on the theme of US-China matters, late Monday, US time, US House Speaker Kevin McCarthy named the 13 Republican members of the new House Select Committee on China. We remember that the committee is tasked with investigating and submitting recommendations on, quote, the status of the Chinese Communist Party's economic, technological, and security progress and its competition with the United States, end quote. US Democrats will appoint no more than 7 members to the body. Okay, next up, as of midnight yesterday, Tuesday, Beijing time, a 14-year partnership between the US gaming developer giant Blizzard Games and Chinese gaming titan NetEase Inc. ended after licensing talks broke down last year. With the end of the partnership, several incredibly popular games, including World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, Overwatch, Diablo 3, StarCraft, and others, went offline on the Chinese mainland. There is not much that mainland-based players can do, apart from apply for refunds for some in-game purchases, or perhaps try to use a VPN. Negotiations over a new licensing agreement collapsed late last year, resulting in NetEase's Hong Kong shares taking an initial 14.5% hit. This month, the disagreement between the two giants spilled into the public as a messy dispute, with NetEase comparing Blizzard to a spouse, quote, seeking a divorce but still remaining attached, end quote. The Chinese mainland is a huge but tightly regulated market for video games. Blizzard no doubt would love to be able to directly distribute to gamers in the country, but regulatory barriers require that the company find a local distributor among a few oligopolistic players. China's gaming sector, like the technology sector generally, has had a rough last few years from Beijing regulators, but appears to have now come out the other side from the worst of it. In April 2022, China's media regulator resumed approving new game licenses, in a move that analysts at the time believe signals a more optimistic turn for the sector. Next up, the property crisis. Hey guys, if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit that like button. For the 50% of viewers who are not currently subscribed, if you do enjoy this sort of information and you'd like to be on top of the most up-to-date analysis, maybe consider subscribing. It may also be worth checking if you believe you should be subscribed, that you still are. Unfortunately, many are unsubscribed from this channel without being informed. And as always, anyone who can go that extra mile and help me keep China Update sustainable, help me continue making these episodes for you guys every day, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. Thank you so much everybody for the ongoing support. And finally for today, UK-based Japanese-owned Financial Times today published an excellent report on a recent rebound in bond prices for Chinese property developers, suggesting the market is betting that Beijing's U-turn on the sector will, at the very least, save many players from collapse. The Financial Times writes that China's high-yield dollar bond index, which is dominated by property developers, has recovered almost 50% from the record low hit in early November, adding that bonds from high-quality developers, such as Country Garden, have also recovered from distressed territory to trade close to their original value. Foreign investors have, quote, tentatively begun to return, end quote. The outlet quotes a Hong Kong-based debt capital markets banker as expressing, quote, over the last couple of months we've seen relaxation of lending restrictions, supportive policies from the Chinese government towards the real estate sector, the opening up of the Chinese economy, and doing away with zero COVID. All of these combined have changed the market's view on China and also dramatically improved sentiment towards Chinese property names. End quote. As we can see here too, Beijing's U-turn on tight financing restrictions has opened the capital taps back up for developers. China's 100 largest property developers raised more than 100 billion RMB, up more than 30% year on year. Most of this funding has come from domestic sources. We remember last month that the People's Bank of China directed state banks to lend to developers. It will likely still take some time before international investors feel more comfortable moving back into dollar bonds for developers. While these are optimistic signs, it is one thing to revive the supply side of the crisis-hit housing sector through cheap credit pumped back into developers. It's a much more difficult feat to restore confidence to home buyers on the demand side. And as officials and analysts alike have pointed out, this is the challenge for policymakers. And of course, as we have stressed over and over again, the deeper systemic issues in the property sector remain the most difficult challenge, medium to long term, for Beijing policymakers too. And we will be following these very spaces as the multi-trillion-dollar property crisis moves into its third year. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much everybody for watching. Have a wonderful day wherever you are, and I will see you all tomorrow.